Hello fellow Ogryn enjoyers, it's me, Freelance, the Ogryn enthusiast. Protecting the little ends is the main use for an Ogryn. As an Ogryn main in Darktide, this took me a little while to figure out. I thought I was some zealot preacher, being the one who charges in with caution to the wind. I would barrel into a glorious death for the Emperor over and over and over again. I didn't know what I was doing wrong until I realized I was doing what an Ogryn wouldn't do. I was being selfish. And what I found after lots of hard meditation and introspection was a build that I would like to call the Support Byllgryn. The Ogryn is a giant tanky powerhouse, being the thing that stops crowds or duels out larger enemies, with him using his large hurtful bonker or slicer to endure and out-damage your enemy, or block for others, making it so you take all the damage. Surprisingly, the Ogryn's melee is his primary, and his large shooty weapon is a secondary. Most of his gameplay is based around just swatting enemies and trying not to take too much melee punishment, while continually refilling your toughness or gaining coherency, toughness in that way. The weapons I use for this build are the Ogrox Mark II Battle Maul and the Mark III Slab Shield, and the Blastoom Mark III Grenadier Gauntlet, which are the main weapons for Byllgryns on tabletop and are the best for Ogryn in survivability and versatility respectively. The Maul and Shield have some of the worst melee attacks in the entire game, but have the best blocking power as a trade-off. This makes it so you can shield yourself and your friends, especially when you use the Shield's special ability, which is to just hunker down. It does make it so you can't move, but it also makes it so you can't be hit in a 180-degree radius in front of you without it using any stamina. You could use it as a breather during combat to regen stamina for moving and bashing enemies in front of you, or just to make sure you don't take any of the bullets that are fleeing towards you. Make sure to stand in front of your friends while you use this weapon, but not too far and not too close.
Stop looking at me, Freelance, bruh.
The Grenadier Gauntlet is good at covering one of the Ogryn's main weaknesses, which is his small range. Have a sniper pestering you? Boom. Have a flamer or a burster that's going to harass your team? Boop. Don't like the cut of that hound's jib? Bam. It's got a great magazine size, and its special ability is to do a grenade uppercut. This is an alright substitute for your damage dealing up close compared to the shield. You can use this to get rid of crowds in front of you, or use it to just get rid of any special that's in your way. The Ogryn also has some very interesting parts of his passives and normal kit. This includes the Big Box of Hurt, which is just a box you throw at people, and it does big damage and stumbles enemies. I love the sound it makes when you schwack it at somebody. Look at it. The Ogryn's already so good at clearing out crowds that it's good to have some single target damage to kill something. It's especially good against the other Chaos Ogryn or special enemies, which makes it great for almost killing an enemy if you throw it at a weak spot. Everyone in the Ogryn's coherency radius also has some better heavy attack damage, which can really help your wholesome Chungus of a zealot preacher if he needs help cleaving through enemies. The Ogryn also takes a reduced 20% damage compared to everybody else. He also has a good amount of melee stagger, making it so most specials can't really get up if you just start heavy attacking them. And his final passive makes it so he isn't interrupted by enemies shooting or meleeing him when he helps up an ally, making him the team's semi-medic / reviver. But don't let anyone else know this, because it makes you look way cooler when you pull off a res like that without them knowing about the passive. And your team will give you so many brownie points, they'll love you. The Ogryn also has a class ability that allows him to charge forward, knocking down enemies in his path. It also gives him the ability to swing a little faster and to move a little faster for 5 seconds and has about a minute cooldown. You're basically an NFL linebacker at this point, dealing brain damage to whoever you hit, making sure they can't get up again. The actual leveling perks for the Ogryn seem to be more up to preference more than anything, but here are my picks for the best ones to use. These work well, especially if you're more worried about protecting your teammates and becoming their shield against chaos, but also being able to check your phone while you take all the aggro. Here are the ones that help me out the most. Linchpin makes it so your team is incentivized even more to stay together, with replenishment rates being doubled for being in its coherency. Your team huddle will be better than ever with this. Blood and Thunder is pretty much a must-take because of the bleed applied on attacks, making it so your weak attacks hit harder. It's also good because of its synergy with other perks like Bloodthirst and Bulgor. Make sure that if you want to make a special enemy bleed, make sure to hit them with a big bappy of a heavy attack instead of a light attack. Towering Presence makes it so your coherency radius is brought up some so you and your teammates can be further away from each other, making it easier for you to absorb the aggro as they social distance and shoot. Bloodthirst makes it so every bleed stack you apply makes the Ogryn take 10% reduced damage all the way up to 50%, allowing the Ogryn to take more harassment. This is why Blood and Thunder is so good, making it the only consistent way you can proc bleed. Merging Bull makes it so every time you hit something, it makes the forehead dent you made bigger than the last time. This is all dependent on how many enemies you hit with the previous attack. This is great for the Byllgryn shield because its heavies have big sweeping attacks that don't deal a lot of damage but hit a lot of things. It also helps the Ogryn be a bit more independent when he's fighting mosh pits, and his capstone perk is Bulgor, which is the most outwardly offensive bull charge and applies 2 full stacks of bleed onto everything it hits. Although Bull Rush is something that happens every 30 seconds, this is really needed when you're starting to fight firing lines of enemies. With this, you really start feeling like corn because you care not where the blood flows. And it also makes you nigh invulnerable for a few seconds while the Bloodthirst is still stacked. With that, you should be able to survive very well, but there are a few enemies of Nurgle that flipping suck and counter this build. Here are some of the main ones, and they really suck because they either ignore or get around your shield. Nadaug is one of the main enemies you should always be watching out for. Once that howl comes out, you should be on full alert. If you can't shoot, bash, or dodge them, you're pretty much dead, being there pinned until somebody helps you up. Make it really hard to not instantly die on harder difficulties. If you see one of these plague dogs on one of your friends, make sure to bull charge him to get that puppy off of your little pal. Trappers are much like dogs, but backwards. Once they do their pinning move, they Scooby-Doo bongo run away and hopefully hit you again. Thankfully enough, you can hear the net coming. If you hear the sound of a net being charged up, just instinctually dodge. Even if you don't see the trapper, it's better safe than sorry. If he doesn't get you and starts running away, you can always Byllgryn charge, but I prefer trying to switch to my secondary and gun that stupid idiot down once they make the mad dash away. The Poxburster is a tough nut to crack. The entire plan is to get as close to you as possible and then blow up with you, usually being very close to the hordes. If you can spot this thing out of a crowd, one hit of your Grenadier Grenade should kill them. But they do ignore your crutch shield and launch you back if they get to explode on you. Make sure you're not near any ledges, lest you be brought into the briny depth of the dark, dank Undercity. They also do a giant amount of the perp damage, making it so you can't heal it back unless you go to a Medicae. So hopefully get your teammates to gun it down, and if they can't, gun it down yourself. Muties are the most intimidating out of all the special enemies because they act like dogs but have a large health pool. Although he can't be bashed, he can be dodged, and you'll have to dodge a lot because of his high health pool and ability to spam his tackle while you're not being able to deal enough damage to burst him. Since muties do make a lot of noise and have a large hitbox, usually your team always goes towards them first, making it so they die fairly quickly though. Bombers run a barbecuing YouTube channel, and his next video is going to be featuring you if you don't watch out. I have a bubbling, boiling hatred for these guys because they make a large zone of fire ouchies that instantly drains your toughness. Usually these guys stay back and spread themselves out amongst the other heretics that are using guns, which make them very hard to actually single out. Usually you can get them with a grenade, but if you can't, you gotta hope on your homies to give that guy a haircut. The Flamers use Flammer Warfers, from which they can Warf Flam it. This affects the ground around them in a cone, but with their noticeable hitbox, large amounts of sound, and light, it's usual that they die pretty fast once they start trying to spread that fire. Plus, when they spawn, they make a stovetop burner sound. So with a team, they should be pretty easy to deal with. Snipers hide away and stay in the back, but can be blocked. Their gaps in shooting also allow for you to pinpoint their exact location and get rid of them. Make sure to watch out for those red aiming lasers, and you and your team should be able to counter snipe them easily, especially with a grenade. All the monstrosities are pretty much baby-proof besides the Plague Beast. The shield makes it so you can absorb all the damage that they put out, making it so your friends can easily hit the weak spots that they have. But unfortunately, the sweet slime puppy has a command grab. If the Plague Beast is the only threat, you should be fine, but overall they are the worst thing to see besides maybe a pissed off demon host, which can't directly hurt you as long as you're hunkered down, but puts your health into that perp. Make sure to ask your team nice and politely to shoot the thing that's killing you, and you should be fine. With that, you have everything you need to know for this build. It should work on any difficulty. If you want to see more videos from me and about Darktide or 40k lore, make sure to like that and subscribe. Till next video, fellas.